satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location to you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. And Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the Record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Monday, the 11th day of March 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable weekend and that you're all raring to go today. I believe that all schools are back in session today, so you can expect the roads to be a little bit more busy than usual. Buses will be out there on the roads. Parents will be in their vehicles taking their children to school. Some children will be on the roadway walking to go to school as well. So we're urging everyone to be extremely cautious. Drive carefully, obey the rules of the road, whether you're a pedestrian, whether you're a cyclist, whether you're a motorcyclist, or you're operating any type of motorized or other vehicle on the road as well. Because remember, the life you save may be your own. Earlier, around 10 minutes to 7 this morning, it was raining in town. I'm not sure if it is still raining, but once the roads are wet, then the driving conditions become much more difficult, much more treacherous. Again, you need to exercise extra caution when using the roadways as well. Again, remember, the life you save may simply be your own. We have no guests for our first section of the show. We will have Minister Roy McTaggart with us at 8:30. So we're going to have an open line for the first part of the show. So you're welcome to join us. So I want to thank you, our listening and viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m., slipped up there, until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls, normally that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at CANDW.KY. Okay. Our phone lines are always open. There's always someone there waiting to take your calls. I'm repeating myself now. You can call us on a toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow. That toll-free number, 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. Of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at For The Record. That is one word, For The Record, at candw.ky. WhatsApp us on 925-3261. where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And, of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. There is a possibility we may have some guests at 7:30 or past 7:30 as well, and if that situation changes, I will let you know as well. Want to remind you also that, we have a little side show as well, that if you have a birthday, if you know someone who's celebrating a birthday or who just celebrated a birthday as well, please feel free to send us a message, and we will announce that during the course of the show as well. So we have open line for now. Want to talk about today. Today, for the Commonwealth, is an extremely important day. It is Commonwealth Day. So today, on the 11th of March, people in Commonwealth countries in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and Americas, the Pacific, and Europe will observe Commonwealth Day. Commonwealth Day will be celebrated with a broad range of activities. We know here in the Cayman Islands there was a church service over the weekend for Commonwealth Day as well. And those activities will include faith and civic gatherings, debates, school assemblies, flag raising ceremonies, street parties, cultural events, and a multicultural, multi-faith service will also take place at Westminster Abbey in the United Kingdom. And of course, here in the Cayman Islands, we have our youth parliament today as well. Of course, the theme for the 2019 Commonwealth Day is a connected Commonwealth, which offers opportunities for the peoples, governments, and institutions of this richly diverse family of nations to connect and to work together at many levels through far-reaching and deep-rooted networks of friendship and goodwill. This year also marks the 70th anniversary of the formation of the Commonwealth as it is configured today, with old ties and new links enabling cooperation towards social, political, and economic development, which is both inclusive and sustainable. And of course, during Commonwealth Day, Her Majesty the Queen will also gives a Commonwealth Day message, which has been published here in the Cayman Islands as well. I think it is important and of course, should also point out that the current Secretary General of the Commonwealth is Baroness Scotland. She was a minister for the overseas territories at one point in time as well. So she is the Secretary General of the Commonwealth as well. What else do we want to talk about Commonwealth Day? Well, the formation of the Commonwealth. After, I think it was, 1957, that we had one of the first countries to gain their independence. And, of course, with the breakup of the British Empire, this was a way, sort of, to keep the empire back together by creating the Commonwealth. Now, while the Commonwealth, as I mentioned earlier, is a combination of countries in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and the Americas, as well as the Pacific and Europe. The British Empire, as you know, spread far and wide throughout the world. With the breakup of the British Empire, this was an opportunity for them to basically keep the empire together. But if you look at the history of the United Kingdom, you will see that at times the United Kingdom was extremely embracing of its former colonies. And then there came a point in the 60s, early 60s, when they put up that steel barrier, I call it, where the entry into the United Kingdom by Commonwealth countries was restricted in terms of the length of stay there. You no longer could reside permanently in the United Kingdom. And certainly those passports that were Commonwealth passports, there were indications in those passports, stamped in there when those passports were issued, that the holder did not have the right to reside in the United Kingdom as well. And so we saw that guard being put up. There were, depending on the various administrations that you had in, whether or not it was a conservative government or a Labour government in place, that would basically determine what the immigration policies for the United Kingdom were. And again, we see that type of posture being taken by the United Kingdom government today again to exclude certain nationalities. A lot of you would have heard over the last year about the Windrush generation, where after the war, the United Kingdom needed people to rebuild. They needed workers. So people from the Caribbean and all over went to the United Kingdom. They welcomed with open arms, while at the same time there was a certain amount of racial discrimination as well. But they were welcomed with open arms. They stayed there, had their children there. Some of them ended up last year being deported, or some of them ended up going back to their country of birth to visit, only to find out that later on, when they tried to re-enter the United Kingdom, they were unable to do so because they hadn't been properly documented. That's what the UK officials said. They couldn't find their papers. There were all sorts of stories in that regard. That is still being litigated. That is still being sorted out today. But I'm just trying to point out to you that the United Kingdom has a varied history when it comes to welcoming those persons from countries that they colonialized during their era when the sun couldn't set on the British Empire. So while Commonwealth, they may have a rich history to it. The whole history of the British Empire and the Commonwealth is not all a pretty picture as you may think that it is, and maybe it may be instructive one of these days to talk about that and to discuss the whole issue of the Commonwealth, because here in the Cayman Islands and the other overseas territories, we're facing particular challenges today where we're going to have to make some firm decisions in terms of where we go and what we do. Folks, we're going to take a commercial break now. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
It is fair to say that the storm of 1932 caught the Cayman Islands off guard. Long assumed that the hurricane season finished in October, yet Grand Cayman was not hit until November 7, 1932, by the storm which would ravage the islands. Furthering the confusion was that the storm had previously passed well south of the islands before changing course and reversing to the northeast. As Captain Keith Tibbetts told afterwards, none of the old sea captains would agree that it was coming here because it never had been known for a hurricane to travel on a course of east to north. After striking Grand Cayman with significant damage, including the sinking of the Balboa off of Georgetown, the storm passed directly over the sister islands, causing total havoc and catastrophic losses. Radio Cayman's Historical Facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
540 months.
16,425 days.
394,200 hours.
45 years.
That's how long we've been committed to serving you, and we won't stop there. Over the years, we have proudly grown with Cayman, making a difference in the community. That's why we're here, to stand by you.
We are Cayman National.
And we thank you for standing by us for 45 years and counting.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, formerly known as Professional Pharmacy, would like to thank the Cayman communities for their loyal support these past 18 years. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care. Thorough background checks and follow-up consultations is only the beginning. Your safety is our concern. Our staff are respected healthcare professionals whose job requires careful and precise calculations. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, where we prepare to provide exceptional care. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we care about your health.
It's March Madness on all SUVs at Vamp Motor, with SUVs starting as low as $20,500 and savings up to $6,000. Find the SUV that fits your budget and island living style. Choose between the roomy 4Runner, the bold Fortuner, the 7-seater Rush, or Vamp Motors' #1 selling SUV, the RAV4, all from Toyota. Or choose the compact EcoSport from Ford. Save now on the best SUV deal ever from Vamp Motors, with savings up to $6,000 and SUVs starting at $20,500. Drive home the deal of the year during Vamp Motors March SUV sale. Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Rotary Central Cayman is proud to have been part of the Valentine's Day program Rotary Has Heart. This February 2019, providing invaluable resources, food vouchers worth CI $5,000 made available to Bridge Foundation and Hope for Today, 2 community partners with heart. Rotary Central Cayman, part of the Rotary District 7020 Zone 34, a fellowship of 83 clubs spread over 10 countries covering 16 islands in the Northwest Caribbean. Rotary Has Heart, another inspiration program through Rotary Central.
Travel to one of the world's greatest ancient civilizations and discover Egypt, the land of pharaohs and pyramids, during a 12-day excursion organized by the Chamber of Commerce. Cruise the Nile River, ride camelback through the Valley of the Kings, visit the tomb of King Tut, the Great Sphinx, and the Pyramids of Giza. The trip takes place from the 17th to the 28th of October. To learn about this trip of a lifetime, visit caymanchamber.ky/Discover Egypt and register to attend an information session on Monday, 11th March at 6 p.m. in the Chamber's conference room in Governor's Square. You can also call Carrie at 743-9126. Don't miss your chance to experience one of the wonders of the world.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio, so we have an open line this morning until later on in the show, talking about Commonwealth Day. And before I tell you some of the other things that are taking place in the Cayman Islands, let's look at the history of the Commonwealth. And I mentioned some of it sort of like freelanced before. But this is actually coming from the Commonwealth's website as well, talking about our history. And then it says that the Commonwealth is one of the world's oldest political association of states. Its roots go back to the British Empire, which I said earlier, when some countries were ruled directly or indirectly by Britain. Some of these countries became self-governing while retaining Britain's monarch as the head of state. They formed the British Commonwealth of Nations. Then in 1949, the association we know today as the Commonwealth came into being. So that was 1949. Since then, independent countries from Africa, the Americas, Asia, Europe, and the Pacific have joined the Commonwealth. Membership in the Commonwealth today is based on free and equal voluntary cooperation. And the last two countries to join the Commonwealth were Rwanda and Mozambique. And those two countries have no historical ties to the British Empire. I believe Rwanda may have been colonized by the French, and of course we know that Mozambique was colonized by the Portuguese as well. We have two callers. I'm going to come to them very quickly. I mentioned the Youth Parliament in the Cayman Islands that will be taking place today. I want to elaborate on that a little bit and to point out to you that the Cayman Islands 12th Youth Parliament takes place on today at the Legislative Assembly. Students from local high schools and post-secondary institutions will take over the House, conduct proceedings, and participate in two debates. The topics are the regulation of the use of plastic bags and the implementation of a juvenile detention and youth rehabilitation center. Members of the public, you are invited to attend. You're requested also to be seated in the public viewing gallery between 10:15 and 10:25 a.m. for the opening ceremonies, which will be followed by the Youth Parliament. Also, the governor and the premier will raise the Commonwealth flag. Mr. Lem Hurlston will bring a message from the Commonwealth Secretary General. The Commonwealth affirmation will be read out by Miss Adelaide Walton on behalf of the Cayman Islands Girls Guides, and that will be taking place outside the Government Administration Building this morning from 9:45 until 10:10 this morning. And you're also being urged to fly a Commonwealth flag today. And in the Cayman Islands, I think they're encouraging you to fly the Cayman Islands flag as well. Now, we want to remember that we're not an independent country. So while we may be a part of the Commonwealth, we're a part of the Commonwealth simply because of our association with the United Kingdom. That association is in the form of us being a colony, or as some will call it today, the proper name that the UK has given us, we're an overseas territory. So we're not an independent country, so we're not a full member of the Commonwealth. We are part of the Commonwealth because of our political association with Great Britain. And as long as we retain that association, unless they were to change the rules in terms of who can be full members of the Commonwealth, we will be there as a part of our, because of our association with the United Kingdom. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Wesley. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you, sir?
Good, man. I am, but I've been quite sure when the Prince was supposed to be coming out. Is he coming in today or something?
No, that's for the 28th of this month, the 28th.
Oh, okay, because I know it was publishing the paper that he was coming down here. The other thing I wanted to say this morning, was I wish we wouldn't be calling when people refer to us as a nation. We're not a nation. We're a Commonwealth dependent territory, and we hear people all the time talking about we're a God-fearing nation and all that. I mean, we're God-fearing, but we're not a nation. Thirdly, I read somewhere this morning or yesterday about these new 737 MAX 8 planes that we got that they're kind of like iffy about them. I don't know, they just had another crash up in Malaysia or someplace with them. And I'm hoping that there's no mechanical or anything like that we didn't realize or something. But you can check into that. You said you're a good researcher, but it was in the, I think it was, I don't remember exactly where I read it, but I read it someplace that they have some problems.
I think, caller, this is the second aircraft to go down, unfortunately, and this one probably less than 6 months in operation as well. When you look at statistics, someone may say, well, two aircraft, that there's not much to connect there, but I believe that there is a lot, to connect there, and we see many companies and countries who are operating them that they have either suspended their services, and I'd like to point out to you here that Cayman Airways has suspended the use of the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft as well. That has taken place, that has been announced.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay?
Thanks, man.
You're welcome, caller. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good, no callers. Okay, something else I want to share with you. In my research with and looking through my Tradewinds newspaper, there's a column there that is headed TRNVR. And on all of those columns that I read, it didn't tell you what the acronym TRNVR stood for. But when you read the articles, you could tell that it had something to do with people serving in the Trinidad Reserve. So, did my research, and the TRNVR is the Trinidad Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. So we hear people here in the Cayman Islands colloquially talking about family members who served in the Trinidad Navy. When you hear them say that, that is what they served in the Trinidad Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. That operated from 1939 until 1945, and we have heard people call in on this show and on other shows as well, talking about either their service or family members who served in the Trinidad Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. Again, that was part of our contribution, and it was also a source of employment, but the Cayman Islands' contribution towards the Commonwealth and the war effort as well. What the previous caller spoke about in terms of us not being a nation, speaking from a political definition, we may not be a nation, but that does not prevent us from acting like a nation in those areas where we can act in terms of being proud of ourselves, proud of our history, proud of our accomplishments, and seeking to accomplish more. And hopefully, one of these days, we will make that giant leap forward where we are the masters of our own destiny. With that, we have reached the top of the hour, 8 o'clock news. Folks, please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
Studio time now by Price Right is 8 o'clock.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
Access. Information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Kersley Fuller. Just a few days after the arrival of its second 737 MAX 8 airplane, Cayman Airways is suspending service until more information can be gathered in the wake of the crash of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 shortly after takeoff on Sunday. All 157 people on board were killed. It follows last October's crash of the Lion Air 737 MAX 8, which plunged into the Java Sea, killing 189 people just after takeoff. In a statement issued Sunday evening, Cayman Airways President and CEO Fabian Worm says the airline is working in coordination with both the Boeing Corporation and the Civil Aviation Authority of the Cayman Islands to monitor the investigation into the Ethiopian Air crash. Mr. Worms also noted there would be some, quote, relatively minor but necessary schedule and capacity changes over the next few days to manage the flight schedule in instances where the national airline might be short on available aircraft. In other news, the Ministry of Health wants to encourage small and medium-sized contractors to bid on the long-term residential mental health facility project. Radio Cayman's April Cummings has more.
The ministry says it has divided the project into 5 packages. The first, enabling works, which includes site preparation with site services. The second package is for the main building, and the third package is comprised of 3 3-unit cottage clusters. The fourth is site finishing and exterior works, and the fifth tender, FF&E. According to the ministry, the contracts will be awarded to the successful bidders on the first 3 packages this year, with work set to begin in late 2019. The final 2 packages will be tendered in 2020 and are expected to be completed the same year. The project is being procured using the traditional design, bid, build delivery method, and the deadline for submissions is March 22nd. The long-term mental health facility was established so residents of the Cayman Islands suffering from serious and chronic mental illness could be cared for locally in a purpose-built environment. 54 residents will be accommodated in 9 cottages, each with 6 beds. April Cummings, Radio Cayman News.
The tender documents are available via the Cayman Islands Government Online Procurement Portal at cayman.bonfirehub.com, or interested contractors can email Senior Project Manager nyasha.brady@gov.ky for more information. Police are investigating another home invasion in West Bay. Saturday night around 10 p.m., officers were sent to a report of an aggravated burglary in the Bottabanu area of West Bay just 3 days after a report of a similar incident in the neighborhood of Birch Tree Hill on Wednesday night. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service says it was reported in this instance that a masked man broke into the home with a machete and demanded jewelry from the man inside. Police say there was a fight between the victim and the attacker, during which the victim was struck with a machete, taking lacerations to his head and arm. The attacker took off on foot, but not before ransacking the victim's car and stealing several personal items. The victim is currently in stable but serious condition. And in other news, the Cayman Islands' 12th Youth Parliament is taking place today at Legislative Assembly. Students from local high schools and post-secondary institutions will take over the House, conduct proceedings, and participate in 2 debates. The topics include the regulation of the use of plastic bags and the implementation of a juvenile detention and youth rehabilitation center. Make sure to keep it locked right here on Radio Cayman for live coverage of today's proceedings. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC who will take us out of the newscast. I'm Kersley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Chris Barrow.
Recovery teams sifting through the wreckage of the Ethiopian Airlines flight that crashed on Sunday have found the plane's black box voice and data recorders. All 157 people on board died when the Boeing 737 MAX 8 came down minutes after taking off from Addis Ababa. China has ordered all of its passenger planes of the same model to be grounded for safety checks. Ethiopia has also grounded its own fleet of the aircraft. One of two women accused of killing the half-brother of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been freed by a court in Malaysia. Prosecutors dropped the charges against Siti Aisyah, who's from Indonesia. The trial of her Vietnamese co-defendant has been adjourned. The Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has held talks with his Iraqi counterpart Barham Saleh at the presidential palace in Baghdad. It's Mr. Rouhani's first visit to the country since he took office 5 years ago. BBC News.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Brother, sister, mother, father, aunt, uncle, nephew, niece, friend, colleague, husband.
You and everyone you love can join the fight against diabetes. March 16th at 6 a.m. Join the management and staff of Seoul Cayman and Esso service stations on a 5K walk or run to benefit the Cayman Islands Diabetes Association. Registration forms available at any Esso station. T-shirt collection from Barcam service station only. Early bird $10. General registration is $15. Follow Seoul Cayman on Facebook for more details.
The Esso brand is a trademark of ExxonMobil Corporation and is used under license.
Did you know your home is wasting electricity right now?
Appliances or electronic devices can use electricity
even when they are not in use or switched off.
Also known as energy vampires, things like your cable box and microwave are wasting your valuable money. Don't let these devices keep sucking your power. To save money, simply group these devices together on a power strip and turn off the strip when it's not in use. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure's Facebook page for more tips on keeping your home energy efficient. Be an energy advocate.
CUC advises customers on Watercourse Road in West Bay that they will experience interruptions to their electrical service on Thursday, March 14th between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Areas affected include all customers on Watercourse Road between the junction of Hell Road and the junction of Northwest Point Road, including Cockspur Way, Topaz Lane, Calamel Drive, Worthing Drive, Hastings Crescent, Poinciana Lane, Ficus Close, Adelia Close, Wildwoods Lane, Evelyn Lane, Eureka Drive, Hamlet Lane, Glidden Lane, Ebanks Road, Floridel, and Lindy's Walk. Motorists are asked to drive with caution when utilizing this section of Watercourse Road, as CUC will have a number of vehicles and personnel in the area and will be required to temporarily block one lane on several sections of Watercourse Road. CUC apologizes for this interruption, which is necessary to facilitate required overhead infrastructure upgrades to provide our customers with safe, reliable, and efficient power. For more information on the outage and streets affected, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Good morning once again, and time now for the latest weather report. Current temperature is 82 degrees, relative humidity is 88%. Barometric pressure 30.05 inches and rising. The wind is east-northeast at 6 knots. Overnight low temperature was 75 degrees. Synopsis indicate light to moderate easterly winds and seas will continue across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours, associated with a high-pressure system over the western Atlantic Ocean. Radar images show isolated showers around the Cayman area, which are moving towards the west-southwest. Now, the forecast for today and tonight calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers, and temperatures will be in the mid-80s today and fall to the mid-70s tonight. Your winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Low tide will be this afternoon at 9 minutes past 1. High tide this evening at 6:33. The sun will set this evening at 6:33 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:37. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Wednesday morning. And once again, we take a look at what's happening traffic-wise. Busy traffic coming from the east. Delays expected and extra patience needed this morning as traffic is bumper to bumper on Shamrock Road and also on the Linford Pearson Highway. Also busy traffic closer to town on Crew Road, further up on Crew Road, steady traffic. And traffic is flowing moderately on Thomas Russell Way and also on Huldah Avenue. Steady traffic heading to Georgetown on the West Bay Road in front of the Ritz, and coming from Georgetown heading to West Bay, especially in front of the Ritz, traffic is moderate. And no issues on Owen Roberts Drive as traffic is flowing pretty good. On Edward Street and Shedden Road, no issues there as traffic is moderate. And on North Sound Road, moderate flow of traffic. That's the very latest of what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll update you traffic-wise. Remember 10-2 on the steering wheel. And if you see any accidents or incidents on Cayman's roads, give us a call here at Radio Cayman at 949-6-990. Have a good morning and buckle up.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating.
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory-breaded, frozen and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Radio Cayman 3 to 6 mix on the weekdays.
Tune in, turn it up, listen.
Sponsored by the Cayman Islands Football Association, SIFA, building a better future for Cayman football. Savannah Pharmacy. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Every day. All the time.
Ultimate party show in the afternoon. Radio Cayman Super Jam.
If you would like to have clear and healthy skin, then ask the pharmacist at Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor about Proactive and X-Out skincare products. Get your best blemish-free skin ever with dermatologist-developed Proactive. X-Out is a revolutionary doctor-developed acne treatment designed just for teens. This one-step face cleanser works 3 ways to clear up acne. Ask the pharmacist at Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor for advice on Proactive and X-Out. Get the skin you've always wanted. Healthcare Pharmacy, Grand Harbor.
The 2019 Spring Labor Force Survey is currently being conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office. The Labor Force Survey collects data on unemployed and employed people. Trained interviewers with ESO ID cards will visit randomly selected households in all districts. The interviews are confidential in accordance with the statistics law. No individual data will be published or disclosed. Survey data are exempt from freedom of information. For more details, please call the ESO on 516-3329.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Just an announcement to make as well. I think Ms. Susan may have covered it in the traffic report, but we will didn't get to cover it in the traffic report. Apparently there is an accident on Linford Pearson Highway coming west, that is coming into town. Apparently, possibly a motorcyclist collided with an automobile, so traffic is down to 1 lane, so you can expect some delays, slower moving traffic in the area of Linford Pearson Highway, and I would imagine that traffic behind that will be backed up, and we're told that it's bumper to bumper as well. So we're just saying to you, exercise restraint, be calm, be patient, and you will get through. But it's an accident. We're not sure how serious it is, but please be careful. I also want to point out to you, and I must say that declare my interest in this particular announcement, that the Cayman Islands Scouts will be assisting in the raising of the Commonwealth flag at the flag ceremony at the Government Administration Building this morning as well. So the Scouts Association, of which I am a part, and our Scouters will be there assisting in the flag raising also. So thumbs up to them for that also. 53 years ago today. And before I talk about that, I just want to say that I had the pleasure last week of going to a Caymanian house. And when I say Caymanian, I'm talking about a real Caymanian, born and bred Caymanian, to go to their house to look at some of the documents that they have in terms of the Caymanian weekly newspaper, the Caymanian Compass. They have I won't call the name of the family unless they tell me that I can. And they have a treasure trove of information in relation to the Cayman Islands, even obituaries. I believe that they probably have more records than the registrar of births and deaths to a certain extent. They have all of the booklets from funerals and things of that nature, treasure trove. There are several people in the Cayman Islands who have these, and we see more and more sharing on Facebook. And I just want to say to you, continue to share what you have with others, because that is how we get an opportunity to talk about our proud history here in the Cayman Islands, see where we came from, and hopefully that will assist us in terms of where we want to go as well. And I wasn't able to stay long at that person's house, but I promised that I would be back to get more. I took photos and stuff, and they gave me copies of some of the papers as well, well organized, really well organized, and they've spent a lot of money and a lot of time doing that as well. And I want to say kudos to them, thumbs up to them, and continue the good work as well. I think we have a couple of callers. Before we go to the callers, I want to say very quickly, 53 years ago, in March of 1966, Her Majesty the Queen visited the Caribbean, visited in Jamaica, and we had a delegation that left from the Cayman Islands to go to meet the Queen in Jamaica. That delegation was headed by the administrator at the time, Mr. John Cumber. I think the Hurlstons, Mr. Otto Hurlston, and his wife went as well. We had members of the staff of the Trade Winds newspaper who went there. One in particular, Mr. Roland Gerzung, who was a pressman at that time, he went. But to show you in 1966 how people felt and how some people were real activists during that time as well, I'm going to read you a poem that was published in the Trade Winds on the 17th of March, 1966. And it reads, Caymanians, Caymanians, where have you been? We have been to Kingston to see the Queen. Caymanians, Caymanians, what did you do there? We looked, and we had a good stare. Caymanians, Caymanians, what did you pay? Not 1 penny. 'Twas a real giveaway. Cancer victims, what do you cry? I have so much pain, I think I shall die. Cancer victims, send for a nurse. Oh, to be without money, it's really a curse. for hotel bills and airline fares, couldn't the government furnish a lot of free care? If this situation were known to our queen, wouldn't she rather elevate it than see and be seen? So that poem was saying, rather than spending the money to go and visit the Queen in Jamaica, that we should have spent that money on health care in the Cayman Islands. And the writer, who was anonymous, did not believe that the Queen would have objected to that. Rather than coming to see me, spend money on health care. Of course, we were a colony of the United Kingdom at that time, and that's where the money should have been coming from, because they colonized us, so they should have been paying for our health care as well. Anyway, let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Opie.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Not bad, yourself?
I'm fine, thanks. Raising hell as usual.
Yeah, but you're raising good health. It's not bad. Oh, see, I couldn't let this pass. I just wanted to show you the level, or bring to your attention the level of respect that some of these people that driving on these roads, right, out of this country. Now, I'm driving down this morning from Prospect by between Stingray Brewery and in the area there by Moxham Cream Service. And there was a Chevy Tahoe license plate 182771. I will repeat that. 182771. I'm driving behind that car, and the driver just threw his window down and throwed some garbage right out on the road with no consideration whatsoever. Could have left it in the car till he got somewhere where a garbage container was. But whoever the person was, they chose to just dump it on our roads. I mean, that is a total disgrace. And these kind of people, if they Caymanians, they should be ashamed of themselves. If they're foreigners, we don't need your kind hair. Thank you very much for listening.
Caller, before you go, I would encourage you to pass that information on to the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, and maybe even the Department of Environmental Health, because you have the plate number. With that plate number, they can trace the owner of the car, and if nothing more than issue a warning to them about that. But we have to continue to name and shame when we see people doing these things, because that's what people like the caller on Friday morning was talking about in relation to the way that we keep the island and the way that people treat it, which makes many areas unsightly, as well. So I would encourage you to pass that information on if you feel like doing that. The least that can be done is for them to issue a warning to the owner of that vehicle, because the owner of that vehicle may not necessarily be the driver of that vehicle, but they're the ones who are responsible. Thank you, caller.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
I just want to comment on that. Yes, you're absolutely right. But you know what? I've got so discouraged over the years of reporting things that have been happening in Cayman. And you know what? I get no results whatsoever. So it's kind of discouraging, when you go to all the trouble. For instance, when you go to the trouble sometimes to let somebody out of an area, you're in a hurry. But yet you still take time out to give them a break to get out, to go and do their business also, even though you're putting yourself out of the way. And they don't even have the decency, the courtesy to say, thank you very much. And these are the things that is getting me so discouraged from reporting. I mean, the only time I got to say anything, I got to come on your radio and I got to let it out. But as far as taking it any further, you know what? It's a waste of time. And I'm so sorry to be saying this here this morning to you on this radio, especially in my country where I see so much crap that is happening, which I totally disagree with. But you know what? there's nobody we can go to get any kind of results whatsoever. Yeah, we can write it down. We'll take a statement, this now, whatever. But and then you know what? It just falls on the air. It's dead. It died. Thank you very much, Christine. Have a good morning.
Thank you very much, caller, as well. Let's go to the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello.
Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning. See Elvis here.
Hey, Elvis. How are you?
Good. Now, you see, now I just listened to this. Now, that gentleman, he called in, and he gave you a number. Now, you got a whole area for another 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And you told him to call the police. You should have been plugging that number every 5 minutes. I'm sure a lot of people hearing you every 5-10 minutes. Somebody else is tuning in.
Yeah, yes.
I think that was that, but that is why people get discouraged, because that man took his time, write down the number, call you, and you just tell him, pass it on to the police. Do your part, my brethren.
Oh, well, caller, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Yeah, I will do my part too, but remember now that person is the person with the first-hand information. He saw it. I can convey that information, but he is the one who saw the action taking place. That's why.
Can call in and said, fellas, keep some of my good citizens, keep an eye out for this license plate number and see what it is and call in. Make them know where you seen the vehicle. Do your part. You look at you in a big position. Do your part. But all I hear you talking about what happened 56 years ago, deal with what happened today. Have a nice day.
Thank you, caller, for that. And I will continue to talk about 50, 60 years ago, because I think that it is extremely important for us to know where we come from if we are to know where we're going as well. But I will still maintain also that the last caller has a point. Yes, I can call in and I can say to the police, vehicle, Tahoe, vehicle license plate number 182, because I've written it down, 182771. The driver of that vehicle threw something out on the road in the vicinity of Cabrew. Police officer said, do you want to make a report? Do you want to give a statement? I can't do it because I am not the person, right? In addition to that, the continuing to call the number out on the radio, someone may know the license plate number. Hopefully that person is listening to Radio Cayman and they're hearing us talking about themselves, and they will realize what they've done, or some friend or family member will recognize the license plate number. If you ask me the license plate number on my vehicle offhand, I can't tell you what the license plate number is because I simply don't memorize it. There are people who memorize license plate numbers and know them. So if they know this person, then fine, bring it to their attention. But I still maintain for the last caller who called in, I will do my part, but the person who saw the action taking place, that is the person with first-hand information. That is the only credible witness, credible person from a legal standpoint that we have, and I will stand by that. With that, we're going to take a commercial break. I have to welcome our new guest into the studio. When we return, folks, the conversation on For the Record will continue.
Rotary Central Cayman is proud to have been part of the Valentine's Day program Rotary Has Heart. This February 2019, providing invaluable resources, food vouchers worth CI $5,000 made available to Bridge Foundation and Hope for Today, two community partners with heart. Rotary Central Cayman, part of the Rotary District 7020 Zone 34, a fellowship of 83 clubs spread over 10 countries covering 16 islands in the Northwest Caribbean. Rotary Has Heart, another inspiration program through Rotary Central.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
Hello, I am Noel March, a small business owner in Georgetown for over 20 years. Small businesses depend on government to develop a quality infrastructure and environment that encourages entrepreneurs to create and grow local businesses, resulting in the creation of jobs and prosperity for Caymanians. Small businesses help drive our economy. Just as we have supported building the new airport, we must support the building of the new cargo and cruise port. It will give our tourism industry the opportunity to grow and Caymanian entrepreneurs the chance to shine. Support the port. Support our tourism.
We are Radio Cayman, and this is how we wake you up in the morning. Praise time. Praise time on Radio Cayman.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I'm gonna walk them golden stairs. 'Cause I know my Jesus answers all my prayers.
Praise time.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Praise time.
There's nothing to go back to. No. Give me Jesus in the morning. For the God of the mountain is still God in the valley.
Shout with joy to God.
Praise time.
Jesus in the morning, yeah.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
It's March Madness on all SUVs at BAM Motors, with SUVs starting as low as $20,500 and savings up to $6,000. Find the SUV that fits your budget and island living style. Choose between the roomy 4Runner, the bold Fortuner, the 7-seater Rush, or that Motors' #1 selling SUV, the RAV4, all from Toyota. Or choose the compact EcoSport from Ford. Save now on the best SUV deal ever from Vamp Motors, with savings up to $6,000 and SUVs starting at $20,500. Drive home the deal of the year during Vamp Motors March SUV sale. Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
And welcome back to For the Record. Before I introduce my guests, I just want to again plug for Mr. Elvis McKeever. Is it a white Tahoe or it's a Tahoe? License plate number 182771. You have been caught throwing garbage out on the street in the vicinity of Cabrew this morning, and that is a violation of the law, and hopefully someone will know who this person is. And yes, I will call the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, see if that is where this is to be reported, and give them the license plate number, and hopefully a warning can be issued to that person. Now, it is my pleasure to have in the studio with me a full house this morning. We have the Honorable Roy McTaggart, Minister of Finance, in the studio with us. We also have the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, the Assistant Senior Financial Secretary, Mr. Michael Nixon, and the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, Ms. Maria Zingapan, here with us. And we will be talking about the Cayman Islands economy this morning. as well. So, without any further ado, I'm going to say good morning to everyone, and I'm going to bring Minister Mark Taggart to the mic. Good morning.
Good morning to you, O.C. Thank you very much for hosting us this morning, and good morning too to the wider Cayman Islands. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and I'll give you the opportunity to take it back from there. Delighted to be here, though.
Delighted to have you as well. We're going to be talking about the economic situation in the Cayman Islands, and I'm sure that our members of our listening audience will have questions. We're not going to open the phone lines until probably at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock. That will give everyone an opportunity for us to set the table for any conversation that may come from the general public as well, Minister.
Sure, and I appreciate that too. You're doing that, O.C., because what we have this morning are basically to talk about three reports that were recently completed by the Economics and Statistics Office with regard to the overall performance of Cayman's economy.
Yes.
And though they have a very compelling story to tell, and that's what we wanted to share this morning with the wider public. And yes, at the appropriate time, let's open it up and we'll begin to talk about the reports and what we're seeing with regard to the Cayman economy.
Okay. Now, when we look on your website, we see things like, for instance, the GDP up. The GDP being up 3.7% June from June
January
2017 to June 2018. Consumer price index being up as well, and then we see our total population at about 64,420 as of the spring of 2018, as well. So those are some, and then we look at the unemployment rate, merchandise imports, balance of payments. Ms. Zingapang, you want to take the mic and speak to those things?
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here and update the community on the latest statistical reports that we have posted last week. We have three reports. The trade report as of the third quarter of 2018. So these were just posted last week, and it's a pleasure to report to you that the economy continues to show robust growth based on the inflow of imports into the country. It grew for the first 9 months by 16.6%. Amounting to about 0.13 million rather. What is important to note here is that across all groups of categories, all groups of goods, we saw an increase, and in particular, we saw the increase in capital goods. And that is important because it's really the capital goods that would enable the economy to have sustainable growth. So it's not just growth in consumer goods such as your typical food and non-durable consumer goods. So that's what we watch out for, because those are the important indicators for projecting future growth.
And for the layman, can you explain what capital goods
capital goods would include anything that's not consumed, but anything that would, for example, be used for construction. Yes, for improving the productive capacity of offices, let's say computer goods. They would even include electrical machinery. Okay. So broadly speaking,
motor vehicles are included in that as well, or that?
No, it's separate. Okay, I mean, I don't know whether it's good news or not, but the importation of transport have actually slowed down. Okay. It declined. Maybe that is what is needed. You already have a lot of
some
vehicles,
people would agree with you with that. Yes, including myself.
We see that in traffic, but it slowed down. It declined. However, all other categories of capital goods did increase, and not just by one digit, but double digit, around 16%, 15.5% for the first 3 quarters of 2018. We also, as you have noted, we also released the report on the system of national accounts. The system of national accounts produces for us the estimates of the total value of goods and services produced in the domestic economy. And it is summarized in an indicator called gross domestic product. Okay. So what is important there is that GDP grew by 3%. So adjusted for inflation. So removing the impact of inflation, the producers of goods and services, the business sector as well, were large or medium, small, all together produced an increase in the value of goods and services produced here domestically by 3%. So what does it mean in terms of, normally when we produce those reports, so what does it mean? First of all, we have to look at the per capita gross domestic product, because that's a very basic indicator, right? Whether was there, it shows to us whether there was growth in gross domestic product simply because your population grew or not. You know, because it could be that your population just grew and therefore your gross domestic product grew. But the fact is, per capita domestic product also increased. Okay, in nominal terms, and I would like to emphasize this, Mr. Rossi, because we are releasing a new figure, okay? And this figure is not something that we, just estimated from the
pull
air,
out of the air, yes,
so to speak. But it is a figure that was produced over a period of 3 years because we had to comply with new estimation standards. These are international standards for estimating GDP. So the nominal, we call it nominal because it includes as well the impact of prices. The nominal GDP per capita is 67,887. So approximately 68,000 Cayman Island dollars per capita. So that's what it means, right?
And that's basically the average income of throughout the Cayman Islands.
Residents. Yes. So more or less.
And now some people will say, I only make $24,000 or $25,000 a year. That's nowhere near the 60-something thousand that you're talking about. And can you explain to our listening audience again, how we come about that?
Yes. So as I said, this is the total value of goods and services, right? So it's not. We do know, of course, that we have several categories of industries. So altogether, when you put them all together, add them up across all industries and average them by the number of people, this population, not just those who are employed.
Yes.
Okay. But, so that would amount to about 68,000 Cayman Island dollars. So it's a fact, of course, that actual earnings might be below this. Because you have to bear in mind that this is an average that cuts across all types of occupation. High earning, low earning, all types of industries, small, medium, large, across industries such as agriculture, finance, and insurance, as well as legal and accounting, so all sorts, okay? But we do have an estimate of the growth of each industry, and these are found in the report. I would like to refer them to our website, and the specific growth per industry would also be found there, right? So, yes, it's true that the first reaction you might tend to compare your income, right? Based on with the per capita GDP. But that's a standard indicator, actually, of the standard of living in a certain territory or country. And we have to do this because we need to update, really, our indicators vis-a-vis, because they use these indicators in comparing Cayman Islands with other territories, countries, for example. So for the longest time, we have used the old methodology, which shows our per capita GDP below the U.S. But now, with the updated methodology, it would come out actually that the per capita of Cayman is in fact much higher than the U.S. The U.S., for example, in 2017, it's about $55,000 US dollars. Okay, and ours would be about 68. That's around 80,000 US dollars. Okay, and people might say, "Oh, that's just something that was produced by changing your methodology." But the fact is, these countries are using the same methodology, right? And so it would be foolhardy for us to hang on to an old methodology that is not comparable to other countries.
Okay, with that, go ahead. Someone wanted to say something. We will go to a commercial break, but I'll
very quickly.
Yes,
basically, what your report showed to us is that essentially the economy was about 25% bigger than we really thought it was.
Yeah.
So that's the takeaway from the report.
Excellent. Folks, please stay tuned for the record with Minister Roy McTaggart, Minister of Finance, and his team, Ms. Maria Zingapan, Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and Senior Assistant Financial Secretary, Mr. Michael Nixon. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Rotary Central Cayman is proud to have been part of the Valentine's Day program Rotary Has Heart. This February 2019, providing invaluable resources, food vouchers worth CI $5,000 made available to Bridge Foundation and Hope for Today, 2 community partners with heart. Rotary Central Cayman, part of the Rotary District 7020 Zone 34, a fellowship of 83 clubs spread over 10 countries covering 16 islands in the Northwest Caribbean. Rotary Has Heart, another inspiration program through Rotary Central.
The Board of Governors of the University College of the Cayman Islands is delighted to invite the community to the university's first presidential inauguration event, Tuesday, March 12th, 6 p.m. at Sir Vassal Johnson Hall. Witness history in the making as UCCI's first president and CEO, Dr. Stacy R. McAfee, shares her vision of creating a more student-centered, well-resourced institution that serves as a cornerstone of economic development in the Cayman Islands. Learn more by emailing events at ucci.edu.ky or visit facebook.com official UCCI.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Honorable Roy McTaggart, Minister of Finance in the Cayman Islands, and his team with him. We're talking about the Cayman Islands economy. You heard earlier Ms. Maria Zingapan, the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, giving us figures. She has pointed out to you that the standards that are being used here in the Cayman Islands are internationally accepted standards. They are what are used throughout the world, and as a result of that, we're able to compare the activity in the Cayman Islands and the results in the Cayman Islands to those of other countries as well. FS, I think you wanted to add something before we went to the commercial break.
Thank you, Mr. Connor, and good morning to you and the listening public. It's obviously nice to be back again in studio after quite some time.
Yes.
I simply wanted just to summarize what Ms. Zingapan has said thus far very quickly.
Sure.
For the public. We were talking about the 2017 calendar year in particular. When you opened this segment of the show, you were mentioning figures such as 3.7% GDP for June 18 versus June 17. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously the half-year mark in 2018. The 2018 year, we are still working on those numbers and finalizing those numbers. But what Ms. Zingapan, the director, spoke about earlier was the 2017 numbers. Yes. And just very, very quickly, what I wanted to say was that as the the size of the economy changes over time. It can change as a result of real expansion or contraction, and it can also change that GDP, the gross domestic product number, can change as a result of prices changing. So in order to compare how your economy is doing over time, one of the things we want to do is to remove the effects of inflation, right? Because your economy can stay the same, but the effect of inflation could cause your GDP number to rise, but you haven't really done anything in real terms. So one important thing is to apply what I think was called a GDP deflator, which takes out the effects of inflation. And so you can see whether your economy has grown in real terms. And when we do that, we have taken 2015 now as our base period. So in 2017, what we're comparing, the size of the economy in 2017, it's actually using the prices, if you like, back in 2015. Okay. And what we're saying is that in 2017, removing the effects of inflation, the economy has grown in 2017 in real terms by 3%. And so, our 2015 is our base year. Prior to that, I think it was in 2007 or 2008. So we've made it more current. So 3% is the real rate of growth in the economy in 2017, the calendar year. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of an important point to make.
If I could,
sure, Minister.
Just thinking of that, I think one of the things is that by moving to a more current base year, that what it does for us is that gives you a more clearer snapshot of what the true economy, current economy is, because over time things do change, and the relative importance of a particular industry or segment of an industry does change, and that can also have an effect on the GDP numbers. So that it gives more credit to me. It makes it more relevant today in terms of the estimates, because it's more reflective of the economy that exists in the Cayman Islands today.
Okay. Excellent. Ms. Maria?
Yes, before I forget, people might think that this was produced by ESO alone, and that I'd like to take this opportunity really to thank all those in the business sector, small, medium, large, mm-hmm. who have really cooperated with us by giving us their data. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. We would not have been able to re-estimate our gross domestic product series, GDP series, without their contribution. And their contribution is really very much valued in our estimation process, because it's really their data that allows us to look at our minister said, the current structure of the economy. So I just wanted to point that out. And
this information that you get from them, that is voluntary at this stage, or is it mandatory?
Well, it's mandated by the statistics law. Mm-hmm. That so every time we go to the field and ask them to fill up their forms, it's under the mandate of the statistics law 2016 revision.
Okay. But I think it's also fair to say, OC, that the office is finding more willingness from the public and business now to comply and give the information and give accurate information with supply to the ESO. Mm-hmm. There is the level of compliance continues to increase for the office.
And I would say, venture to say that that's important to them as well, because when you're looking at investors, people wanting to invest in the Cayman Islands, to live in the Cayman Islands, aren't these some of the figures that people will look at in making those decisions?
I think you're dead right. I mean, these don't have relevance to government and to government alone. Businesses here will look at these numbers, and they use these numbers and in their own way in order to help drive their own investment decisions. Similarly, others outside looking in, they would rely on these in a very big way if they were thinking of investing in the Cayman Islands or having some sort of business, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. It's relevant to everyone, both public and private.
And we see sometimes that it can also be a detriment when it comes to as if we needed to seek aid, one of the things that they look at is GDP. But we have seen since the Hurricane Irma in the Eastern Caribbean and in relation in particular to the British Virgin Islands, that the OECD and the UK, they're now looking at how aid is given out to countries with high GDP, because the UK was unable to use certain European Union funds to assist those territories, and all of that has changed now. So GDP may not be as significant as it was before in terms of the ability to get aid after a natural disaster.
But on the other hand, yes, that's true, because those who assist countries in terms of technical assistance would look at GDP per capita, right? So we will, given the nominal GDP per capita in Cayman, we would not qualify for assistance, for example. However, we have to take note that the same indicator is used by credit analysts, credit rating agencies such as Moody's, which would put us in such a rating that would bring down the cost of borrowing, not just for the government, but for the country as a whole, because it affects the sovereign rating of Cayman. So I think you would rather want to borrow at a much lower cost rather than expect your so-called donor countries to give you aid. So that's a more sustainable way of providing finance to Cayman, not just government, but the Cayman as a whole. Yeah. Okay. And I would like to note that when Moody's came here last week, and Mr. Nixon can speak to that, we have provided them with the latest estimates. I don't think they were surprised, mainly because their own expectations of the GDP indicators, for example, they have a good feel really of where we are, and it's just the numbers, the indicators we produce just confirm their own estimate for the country, for the Cayman Islands.
Mr. Nixon, you want to add to that, sir?
Sure. During the discussions last week with the team from Moody's, we analyzed, or we shared with them, all of the current information on the Cayman Islands economy, and overwhelmingly the comment back to us was, look, Cayman is in a very good space right now. The economy is solid. Things are definitely all looking positive. When they looked medium to long term, they felt that everything that was happening here was positioning us for maintaining our pattern of growth. And there were no real areas of concern from the economy. And we see that coming back in the reports. Ms. Zingapan hit on and thanking the business community for participating, and that is really critical for us in improving the quality of the data that the ESO office is able to produce, the reports that they're able to produce. Because a lot of the international standards require high participation or high amounts of data gathering from the private sector. And with us not having a national tax system, as other jurisdictions which would have access to that type of data, we have to rely on our surveys and contacts with the industry. And I really want to reinforce that. Thanks again to the industry. And, Cayman is very unique. We're a small place. A bit of innovation, investment has a dramatic impact on our economy. And we've been very fortunate the last 40 years. We've always grown from strength to strength, even when we've been faced with things like the economic downturn in 2008, 2009. Investors stayed with us. They continued to invest. Businesses continued to grow. Our population stayed. Our major sectors, tourism, financial services, essentially doubled down and reinvested and hang in there for the long term, and we've seen the benefits of that today. So our economy is stable, our economy is growing. There are increasing opportunities for innovation happening in the sectors. The financial services industry continues to innovate. There's always new activity happening on the fringes.
Despite the threats.
Despite the threats, exactly. Exactly. Despite the threats, which is very exciting. It's a very dynamic environment here in Cayman, but at the same time our economy is very stable, and that's one of the main points.
Okay, we're reaching the top of the hour for the 9 o'clock news. Some of the things that we want to look at, I have a question from one of our listeners in relation to the status of the bullet bond, which is coming due soon as well. There are some questions in relation to the world economy. We see a slowdown in the U.S. We see a slowdown in China. What will happen? How can the Cayman Islands prepare for that? So we have some good news stories, and at the same time, we want to be able to look into the crystal ball, into the future, to see how do we position ourselves here in the Cayman Islands as well. So, folks, if you want to engage in that conversation, if you want to talk about it, if you want to listen to it, then stay tuned to Radio Cayman, because we will be back immediately after headline news at 9 o'clock.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Cayman Airways grounds its new 737 MAX 8 planes after the deadly crash of Ethiopian Airlines 302, which killed all 157 people on board. The national airline recently purchased 2 of the same type of plane for its services. CAL says there will be, quote, relatively minor but necessary schedule changes over the next few days to manage the flight schedule. The Indonesian woman accused of killing Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korea's leader, has been freed after charges against her were dropped. She'd been accused of smearing VX nerve agent on Mr. Kim's face in Kuala Lumpur airport in 2017. She and her co-accused deny murder and say they thought they were part of a TV prank. And a U.S. man has claimed to have found a videotape allegedly showing R. Kelly, quote, sexually abusing underage African-American girls. Gary Dennis told reporters he handed the tape to authorities after discovering it at his house. R. Kelly was charged last month with 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse involving 4 alleged victims, 3 of whom were minors. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, Honorable Roy MacTaggart, Minister of Finance in the Cayman Islands. Also with us is Financial Secretary Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, Assistant Financial Secretary Mr. Michael Nixon, and the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, Ms. Maria Zingapan. Before we went to the break, I sort of teased you in terms of some of the things that we want to talk about during this segment of the show. And Minister, the bullet bond, can you tell our listening and viewing audience when that comes due and what are the government plans in terms of what you can reveal to us in relation to it?
I'm happy to do so, O.C., and thank you. We all know that we have this bond of $312 million US or 261 million CI dollars that matures or comes due for payment in probably late November of this year. Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about it being a bullet bond, it means the entire amount of principal and interest accrued but unpaid up to that date is due to be repaid. So it has to be repaid in one lump sum. So we will repay that debt in full in late November. But what it means is that in order to do so, we have to go back and we have into the market and we have to borrow some, because we don't have, $261 million of just free cash flow sitting around to be able to do that. If we were to repay it 100%, we still have to go to the bank anyway to borrow, because we wouldn't have any reserves left to carry forward because of all the other reserves and funds that we have to keep that we really can't touch without the permission of the Foreign Office. So that is where we are right now. We are starting, I think, to take a look. FS, you can jump in here at any point with regard to it. There is keen interest in the local as well as international market for any refinancing of the bond that government is prepared to undertake. And, we have a number of people overseas that are knocking on our doors looking to make presentations, but we're not quite there yet in terms of it's still a bit, for me to be a bit early with regard to going on that sort of receiving presentations and solicitations. We really need to put it out, I think, to develop a tender document and expose it to see what interest there is. But I know that all of our commercial clearing banks here, they're all keen to participate in whatever way we want to move forward with this.
And everyone would be knocking on your doors simply as a result of what Ms. Zingapan and Mr. Nixon spoke about in terms of our credit rating, the way that the international community looks at us, the way that the credit rating agencies look, the way that they look at us in relation to our economic activity and our economic position.
Oh, see, you cannot underestimate, the importance and the credibility that AA3 rating gives to Cayman. I too met with Moody's last week, and he said to me, you have the highest in the Caribbean. You have the highest rating of all Caribbean nations. Caribbean and I think he said Central or South America as well. So, I mean, that speaks wonders in terms of the stability and the strength of the Cayman Islands economy to sustain, and to keep and retain a AA3 rating. Let's give you an example. I think the UK, they have a AA2 rating, which is just one notch above Cayman. And a AA3 rating is just 3 notches down from a AAA rating, which only the biggest and the best are able to obtain. So, we are in a very comfortable position, given, there are some constraints, I think, with regard to Cayman ever being able to reasonably expect that our rating could go higher than the AA3. We might one day get to an AA2 if we continue on the path that we are, but certainly no higher. Some of the constraints that Moody's have noted to us is the fact that the lack of diversification of our economy, that really means that it continues to restrain us in terms of an increased rating. The ideas, things just do escape me, but I see my colleagues next to me raising their hands. So
Sure.
Take it away.
And before I give the mic to them, I always like to compare the Cayman Islands, and many people do, and they over there do it as well, the Bermudians with the Cayman Islands, and Standard & Poor's credit rating for Bermuda stands at an A+, only at an A+. At this point in time, Moody's credit rating for Bermuda was A2, and Fitch's credit rating for Bermuda was at NA, with an NA outlook. I'm not sure what NA means. I'll ask Miss Maria to tell us what that means. Not applicable?
No rating for that.
No rating for them. So, when we compare it to, one of our sister territories, Ms. Maria.
Yes. I was about to say that given the size of the Cayman Islands economy, comparing it with similar sizes, I think what we have now is the highest because, as the minister said, yes, diversification is one factor, but also the size. So no matter how much how high our per capita GDP is, the fact is that we are a small territory, and you can only have your GDP in total can be very limited due to that. So given the size, we have one of the highest, if not the highest, rating. And with respect to diversification, we have seen a growing diversification of the economy. For example, if you look at the 2017 National Accounts reports, the sector with the highest average growth in the past 5 years is, you would be surprised, health sector. So there's growing diversification, and it's quite visible. You see Health City and the private clinics growing, etc. And increasingly, they also export their services, meaning you have foreigners, expats coming here for that very purpose. Right. So there's some diversification going on. May not be as and it's seen in the indicators. So it may not be as dramatic, right? But it's there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
FS?
Thanks, Maria, and thanks, Mr. Connor. I just wanted to add a little bit more detail to what Minister McTaggart spoke about earlier on the bullet bond. Just to make a couple of points. One is that the interest rate on that bond is 5.95% per annum, and it was fixed. So for the entire duration of the 10 years life of the bond, and the government was paying 5.95% interest. What that translates to over the 10-year period on a $312 million US bond is that the government would have paid or will pay $185.6 million dollars in interest, US dollars in interest over that 10 years. And in addition to that, we do have to repay the $312 million principal in November of this year. So it was quite a fairly tough pill to swallow in comparing those numbers, interest versus principal, and you're having to repay the principal, again, and it wasn't reduced over time. In 2009, when the government went for the financing, there was little appetite in the market, in the capital markets, for an amortizing bond. The current government, Minister McTaggart, has led the way. They've made it clear that the next round of financing will definitely be an amortizing structure where the principal is repaid over time, and we don't get into a situation where X years later we haven't touched the principal. So that point is important, that we are looking for an amortizing structure. The government is obviously keen on getting the lowest possible interest rate, and as Minister McTaggart has said, that there's lots of interest in the market locally, and some of the overseas players have actually made contact again. So there's keen competition to get a portion, if you like, of the proceeds that we need to come up with to repay the bond. The government has already secured up to $153 million from the Legislative Assembly as the amount that the government can borrow to put towards the $312 million that it needs to repay. And the remainder would come from the government's own cash balances. I know Minister McTaggart would like to maximize the amount of money that the government can use of its own to repay that debt, so that we could end up borrowing less than the 153 that the LA has authorized us. So, but if we just chose those two numbers, if we have to repay 261 million CI, and we are only going to borrow 153 million CI to do so, our debt then at the end of November, end of December this year, our debt would have fallen by just about $108 million, which is obviously a good thing for the Cayman Islands government debt to be decreasing in a couple of months by over $100 million. That's a great thing to have achieved.
Yeah, certainly is. Now, FS, speaking in terms of looking towards an amortized system of borrowing as opposed to what you have now, with so many people knocking on the door, that puts the Cayman Islands government in a sort of commanding position to call the shots in terms of where they want to go, as far as the loan is concerned, doesn't it?
That's absolutely correct, Mr. Connor. That's absolutely correct. And just tying back very quickly, as an adjacent point to that, just tying back very quickly to the GDP discussion we were having earlier, as debt to GDP, the ratio is a worldwide measuring point, metric, and you want your debt to GDP number or ratio to be as low as possible, because that then influences the interest rate that you can command, and you obviously want that to be as low as possible. So the Cayman Islands gross domestic product, GDP, increasing then has the effect of lowering, other things being equal, lowering the debt to GDP ratio, which then helps us with our rating from Moody's, etc., which then translates into, we hope and we are confident, of a lower interest rate. So the fact that the Cayman Islands economy is growing obviously translates into a greater volume of jobs for the population and a greater variety of jobs for the population, but also for the impact that it will have on lowering our debt costs should we go down that road, and we have to borrow some to repay that. So GDP growing is a good thing for jobs and also a good thing for debt servicing costs.
Okay, we have to go to a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned. You're hearing it right here on For the Record. I'm sure that many of these points will be debated in the Legislative Assembly, but here on For the Record, Minister McTaggart and his crew are breaking it down into simple terms for you to understand. So weeks later on, people won't be calling in and talking about the bullet bond, and here we thought we were going to be paying all of it off, but we're still paying, whatever. You're having it explained right here on For the Record. So don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you.
This week at Kirk Home Center, enjoy savings for your workshop with an 18-volt cordless angle grinder for $157.49 and a FlexiClick 12-volt cordless drill for $265.99, both from Bosch. Grab a 142-piece mechanics tool set for $88.99 and a 44-gallon trash can for $66.99.
Kirk's Home Center, we got a great deal in store for you.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, we have the Honorable Roy McTaggart, Minister of Finance, and his team, which consists of the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, the Deputy Assistant, Senior Assistant Financial Secretary, Mr. Michael Nixon, and the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, Miss Maria Zingapan. We're talking about the Cayman Islands economy. I did mention earlier that we would want to also talk about the global outlook in terms of the world economy, the We see a slowdown in the economy of China. We see a slowdown in the economy of the United States. We know in 2007, 2008, when we had the financial bust in the U.S., the housing market burst, what effect did it had on the global economy, and in particular on the economy here in the Cayman Islands as well. So all of those things we want to talk about. I'm not sure if any of you were able to read the editorial in the Caymanian Compass this morning, lauding the achievement of the Cayman Turtle Farm for their ability to pay off their loan of $50 million that they had. Now, last week in speaking to someone, that person remarked that despite the fact that the turtle farm is paying off their loan, they still have to seek an infusion of at least $3 million per year from government, a subsidy. But the turtle farm has always been subsidized, and the director or the chief officer for the turtle farm has indicated that he's looking forward to that day when a subsidy is no longer needed. Any comments, Minister, starting with you?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, we're quite happy as well to see that happen. One thing we can say is that the subsidy to the turtle farm will not have to be as high as it has been.
Precisely,
because
yeah.
The only way that they were able to make those payments was because government stepped in and supported, and we have always have and will support our SAGCs, statutory authorities and government companies. So it is a relief to see that happen, and we have always ensured the timely repayment of all of our entities' debts, and certainly will continue to do that for everyone. And so, yes, the decline in the subsidy is still needed there because the turtle farm or the turtle center itself, the income that they derive from their entrance fees and sales of goods and services at the site and also the tours that they provide are not sufficiently up to cover the operating costs of that entity. And remember too that they also have the research arm of it as well that has to be continued to be funded, and all their efforts to to monitor the turtle nesting and all of that stuff that keeps going on down there at the facility. So it does play a very significant role in terms of the economy as an attraction for our visitors, and also the conservation efforts with regard to the green sea turtle.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the potential slowdown in the economy and how the Cayman Islands can position, or how we in the Cayman Islands can position ourselves for that possibility, and looking at the local investments that we have in the Cayman Islands, and one major investor who's pumping a lot of money and doing a lot of development in the Cayman Islands, whether or not that can be a plus or a minus in the event of a worldwide economic slowdown. Sure.
Yes. Part of the functions, in fact, one of the main functions of the economic statistics is to provide projections on economic growth for the next 3, sometimes 5 years. And this is to support the strategic policy statement process, SPS process they call it. And we're currently reviewing the numbers coming out from the IMF. They issue what we call a World Economic Outlook on the projected growth of the world as well as specific economies. So we look at, for example, the main trading partners, not just in terms of goods but services as well of the Cayman Islands, the U.S. and the advanced economy, right? So we do have those projections, and it looks like there will be a slowdown on the part of the U.S. Their economic growth which came out of last week was 2.9%. That's for the whole of 2018. It just fell short of the Trump administration's so-called target. They actually don't target it. It's just something that they, would have wanted to achieve. It's what they would have wanted to achieve was 3%. But just to give you a background, how well positioned is the Cayman Islands economy? We just would like to point out that Cayman had a way of decoupling. We call it decoupling, meaning it grew despite the impact of the recession in 26 and 20 in 08, 09, right? So we came out from the recession of those years in 2011, right? And then we grew much stronger, in fact, in 2013, 2014. When, in fact, the U.S. economy in for example, just to cite a more recent year, in 2016, the U.S. economy, in fact, slowed down. And you hardly notice it in Cayman. In 2016, the U.S. grew by 1.6%, much lower than their growth in 2015 of 2.9%. Okay, they recovered in 2017, and we felt that somehow. So it showed in 2015, 2016. It showed in the almost very slow, almost no growth at all in our tourist arrivals. However, Cayman's economy continued to grow even stronger. 2015, we grew by 2.8%, 2016 in 3.1%. Why is that so? And it's important for us to understand that there are sectors that are not too highly dependent on tourist arrivals. For example, I cited much earlier, health. Okay, I believe they have patients coming from other parts of the Caribbean and Latin America. And of course, it's visible. You see development projects everywhere, and that enabled us. We have airports, the airport construction and roads. So in the future, what would provide buffer to the islands as we see a slowdown in the U.S. growth, advanced economies growth would be, the so-called pillar of the Cayman Islands economy, financial services, and tourism would remain important. However, we have to take into account that we also there are a number of development projects on board and private sector investments on board, and so that would go a long way in providing continued growth for the economy. Yes. So for example, just for 2018, we have just to show you how dynamic this business of estimating, of projecting economic growth. Okay. Initially, for 2018, we projected growth lower than 3%, something at 2.8%, right? Because it's like, wow, 3% is way above what we call potential growth, potential GDP growth, because potential GDP growth is now about 2.6%. So when you're growing at 3%, you would say, a growth of 2.9, 2.8, 2.8 is not so bad because still above potential. In fact, if you're growing at 2.6%, that's still good because you're in fact growing at your potential GDP growth. So in 2018, we revised it upwards almost 3 times from 2.8, 3%, and now we revised it. The latest projection is 3.4%. Because as you have noted, Mr. Ossie, in the first 6 months of 2018 alone, the economy grew by 3.7%. So that will help a lot. And as I've mentioned earlier, you have a lot of capital investment going on, which would help sustain economic growth in the future.
Okay, very quickly, we have about a minute and a half before we go to our next commercial break. How important is a balance of trade to the Cayman Islands as opposed to other more industrialized countries?
Yes. Well, that's a good question because as a small we call it ourselves small state economy. Yes, it's not unusual for us to have a trade deficit. Okay, but the trade deficit only shows to you the trade of goods deficit, the trade in terms of goods. But we have to take note that we do have a large amount of exportation in terms of services. Okay, for example, in 2017, the net trade in services from financial services alone is about 934.5 million. From travel services, which includes tourism, it's 504.8 million. Other business services, legal and accounting, it's about 408.7 million. So this somehow reduces the deficit from the trade in goods, right? So that we would come out with a current account deficit. It's still large because you also have a deficit in terms of the flows in investment income and workers' remittances. However, we have to take note that as the receipts from services grow, as your economy grows, they help reduce the deficit coming from the trade in goods, right? So it's not something that it's not unusual. In other words, as your economy grows, of course, demand for for goods, important goods, would grow, right? But so long as, I think the FS mentioned earlier, so long as your GDP is growing, right? Because you would want to have the ability to pay. So GDP is really your main indicator for an economy's ability to pay. So long as that is growing as your trade deficit grows, then it's not something that could derail your growth as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Maria. Folks, please stay tuned for The Record with Minister Roy McTaggart and his team. Will be back shortly after this short commercial break.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
Have you ever dreamed about seeing snow or enjoying a family vacation in the majestic Rocky Mountains? Now you can with nonstop flights from Grand Cayman to Denver aboard Cayman Airways. Denver airfares are now on sale from just $380 CI round trip, including taxes and fees. Book by March 18th. Enjoy Wild Wild West and gold mining tours. Catch a sporting game or festival. Discover Denver's unique railroad history and more. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Rotary Central Cayman is proud to have been part of the Valentine's Day program Rotary Has Heart. This February 2019, providing invaluable resources, food vouchers worth CI $5,000 made available to Bridge Foundation and Hope for Today, two community partners with heart. Rotary Central Cayman, part of the Rotary District 7020 Zone 34, a fellowship of 83 clubs spread over 10 countries covering 16 islands in the Northwest Caribbean. Rotary Has Heart, another inspiration program through Rotary Central.
Hi, I'm Dawn McLean Brady, President of the Cayman Islands Small Business Association, better known as CISPA. Small businesses drive Cayman's economy. As small business owners, we depend on government to create an environment where we, as entrepreneurs, can do what we do best, and that's to provide products and services that are valuable to our customers and, in turn, employ others. The cruise piers and cargo ports provide these opportunities. Encourage our government to build a port and let the Caymanian entrepreneurial spirit shine. Support the port, support our tourism.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, the Honorable Roy McTaggart, Minister of Finance in the Cayman Islands, his Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, the Deputy Assistant Financial Secretary, Senior Financial Assistant Secretary, Mr. Michael Nixon, and Miss Maria Zingapan, the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit. One of our listeners has written in and basically said, I'll try to paraphrase it, but it says, I'm hearing you talk about the economic position of the Cayman Islands, which seems to be fairly strong. Can you tell us what does that mean for the ordinary man on the street in the Cayman Islands who is making a small salary and just barely able to make ends meet? I think that's a political one more than anything else, so we'll have the Minister answer that one for us.
And I think very good question. What you should see with a growing economy like we have, I think, first of all, in my view, there should be some upward pressure on wages. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think what it suggests, and we see this from other evidence as well, and in fact some of the reports that we will be releasing as well, is that jobs are in abundance in the local economy. And, we are at the lowest level of unemployment that we have seen in well over a decade. So all of those things alone, I think, do contribute to a situation where you should be seeing some rising fortunes for what is described by your listener as the average person on the street. I mean, certainly in terms of government's own performance, we have been able to do a lot of things in the last year with regard to helping the most at risk in our communities, those people who are on pensions and who are limited resource, those who are not able to work and who rely on the government for their subsistence. And, we've been able to significantly increase the amount of support that we provide for those who are most at risk in the community. And, it's very significant sums to them, I believe. Because the monthly subsistence has now gone from $550 up to $750, and that's very significant percentage
huge
increase.
Jump, yes. Yeah.
So there are a number of things that I think have been quite helpful, and you have the other things that we have done to OC, like we have reducing the taxes on things like fuel used by COC, which has made significant impact on people in terms of their cost of electricity. Building materials, several years ago, we reduced the cost of building materials from the 20% down to 15%. Trying to think of some of the other things that we've done, but there are a couple others. Gents and lady, jump in if I miss anything. But a number of things have been done to try and to help for the economic success to be felt by all segments of our society.
Okay. Another one had to do with the budget and whether or not we still require UK approval for our budget. FS or Minister?
No, happy to address that. The last budget we had to have approved by the UK, I think, was the 2015-16 budget. So we are, once we complied with the principles of fiscal responsibility, FFR, framework for fiscal responsibility. We no longer need to seek their approval prior to getting a budget tabled in the Legislative Assembly.
FS, anything you want to add?
I think that's mainly it. Mr. Connor, Mr. McTaggart has hit the key point. Just filling in very quickly and looking ahead. Obviously, the government is this year in 2019 will be presenting its budget for the 2020 and the 2021 financial year to get approval for that from the Legislative Assembly during this calendar year, so that when the 1st of January 2020 comes along, the government has the required authority to actually incur expenditure. So we'll be doing that in the course of this year. And just as a tidbit of information for the public, a nice round number that I think should be easily remembered is that the operating costs of the government. So we're talking about civil servant salaries, we're talking about utilities, the day-to-day operating costs of the government, not the capital works, not the road building, not the construction of buildings, not the purchase of vehicles, but the day-to-day operating costs of government. So teachers' salaries, policemen's salaries, and so forth, is about $2 million a day, is what it costs to operate the government now. And so that's quite a nice number for the public to have in its mind. And so in the course of a year, you're talking just a little bit over $700 million for operating expenses of the government in the course of a year. We'd obviously like to keep that number as low as possible, but currently it's I'm approximating it, but it's about $2 million CI a day to operate the government on its day-to-day expenses.
Okay, and Mr. Nixon FS touched on something there in relation to the 2-year budget. Now, when it was first being introduced, we heard a lot of doom and gloom being predicted about that. How is the 2-year budgeting process going?
Well, this is our first 2-year cycle, being their 2018 and 2019 budgets were the first ones that were approved under the 2-year cycle. We're now starting the budget process for the next 2 years, which will be 2020 and 2021. As with any change, there are growing pains to be experienced. Some agencies did not think of the 2-year budget being that each year is how you have a separate set of appropriations for each calendar year. Some agencies were thinking, oh, well, I have appropriations that span over the entire 2 years, but that's not the case.
So some may have been a little bit tight with their spending as a result.
Right. Thinking that
it
could be a good thing. But I think we're helping the public service get up to speed on that, and to ensure that while we are budgeting for 2 years, you still have to look at things in 1 year financial tranches and to operate on that basis. So.
Excellent. Now, I don't want to derail the conversation in any way, because I know that there's a message that you want to get out to the public in terms of the economic position of the Cayman Islands, as well. So I'm going to throw the mic back open to whoever wants to take it next, Minister.
As we were discussing, OC, I mean, I think you asked the questions with regard to what is perceived as the, a likely slowdown in the worldwide economy. Certainly, we see the IMF starting to lower some of their projections for worldwide growth, and you hear that the chatter in the United States is particularly loud right now with regard to their economy. That things are slowing down, and it's outright talk that the U.S. could slip into a recession in 2021. I mean, a lot of these things really are speculation at this point in time. Nobody really knows. Yeah. But certainly there are indicators that things could go that way. Otherwise, people wouldn't necessarily be speaking in those terms. So from a local standpoint and from our view, really is that what I try to do as Minister of Finance is just keep my eyes and ears to the ground and look for any signs locally that might indicate that we are, that these things could start to affect us. And gentlemen here will tell you almost every week I ask, are we seeing any indicators from a financial standpoint that suggests that revenue may be moderating or slowing down in any way? Early indicators are you see tourism numbers showing continuing robustness, continuing to climb. It just doesn't seem to be anything at this point in time. But even within our caucus and the cabinet, I have raised that prospect and I've alerted people, look, we need to be wary. We just need to watch and see where things go. You just don't want to ignore things, and then you find that, you've got a crisis on your hand because, your revenues and your economic activity has gone off the cliff. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Yeah. And, you mentioned in particular, that single investor, largest investor in this country. And I mean, that I remember so very clearly in the darkest days of the recession, just how much that meant to this overall economy and to the country to have the spending that was taking place there because nobody else was. Yes. Nobody else was hiring. So that has a very positive effect and a very moderating effect on a country. And we saw and experienced firsthand the effects of that. And so, for me, I'm not sounding any alarm whatsoever. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open and just keep watching and keep reading and looking for, where the world and certainly our largest trading partners like the United States, where they are moving. I think from our own standpoint, we have created enough development and economic activity right now that it should help to moderate any negative influences that might come from from external sources at this point in time. But again, you have other challenges and headwinds that you see we face with the EU initiatives. I think personally that the efforts with regard to the substantive presence issue with the EU and the OECD bodes very well in terms of the likely economic impact on the Cayman Islands. And I mean, I see anecdotally at this time the number of inquiries in terms of people looking now to establish a physical presence in Cayman. It's on the rise. And, it's a good problem to have from an economist standpoint.
It certainly is. And Minister, speaking, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, but I'll say this now and then you can answer it later on. The tendency with an increased economic activity, with the good fortunes that we have now, tendency for some governments is to overextend themselves, make huge investments in various issues, and only to find out later on that some of them become white elephants when you have a downturn in it. So we'd like you to speak a little bit more to how cautious the Cayman Islands will be despite the increase in economic activity and economic fortunes in the Cayman Islands as well. So, folks, if you want to hear that, you can only hear it by staying tuned to Radio Cayman. We will be back right after this short commercial break.
It's March Madness on all SUVs at BAM Motors, with SUVs starting as low as $20,500 and savings up to $6,000. Find the SUV that fits your budget and island living style. Choose between the roomy 4Runner, the bold Fortuner, the 7-seater Rush, or BAM Motors' #1 selling SUV, the RAV4, all from Toyota. Or choose the compact EcoSport from Ford. Save now on the best SUV deal ever from BAM Motors, with savings up to $6,000 and SUVs starting at $20,500. Drive home the deal of the year during BAM Motors March SUV sale. BAM Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore,
Have you ever dreamed about seeing snow or enjoying a family vacation in the majestic Rocky Mountains? Now you can with nonstop flights from Grand Cayman to Denver aboard Cayman Airways. Denver airfares are now on sale from just $380 CI round trip, including taxes and fees. Book by March 18th. Enjoy Wild Wild West and gold mining tours. Catch a sporting game or festival. Discover Denver's unique railroad history and more. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Hi, I'm Colin Lumsden, the Georgetown manager and head of the Revitalization Initiative. Our capital city is the heart of business activities in the Cayman Islands, and we would like to bring it back as a center of social activities, with street-side cafes, green spaces, improved roads, and proper walkways for interconnectivity. The new cruise and cargo port is part of the plan and will allow for operators to meet passengers dockside with less lines and overcrowding. Cargo operations will be less intrusive. There will be pedestrianized areas for people to safely walk, shop, and dine. Modernizing the cruise and cargo port is a key element in the efforts to revitalizing our capital city.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I have in the studio with me this morning the Honourable Roy McTaggart, Minister of Finance in the Cayman Islands, and his team. We have one caller, so we're going to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you and your panel members.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes. I just wanted to say congratulations to the government, all the departments and the minister on just providing such excellent information for us. And I know they've not only just provided it, but the government has also directly contributed to the economic growth of the Cayman Islands, for which we are so proud and happy. Having said that, I just wanted to ask if they could repeat some of the information that they gave in terms of our rating by Moody. Mm-hmm. And also the comparison with Bermuda, the Standard & Poor's and the A+ that they mentioned. I missed some of that, and I thought that all of that information, I think Mr. Michael Nixon also mentioned a lot of it when the Moody Group was here and the rating that they gave to the Cayman Islands. If they could repeat that for me, I would appreciate it. I'm going to hang up and listen to the information that they'll provide.
Okay, Mr. All Michael right. Nixon.
Sure. Thank you, caller. So our current rating with Moody's is AA3, which is among the highest, or is the highest rating of any country in the Caribbean and Latin America region.
Mm-hmm. And what's the highest can you get from Moody's? What's the highest rating?
Is a AAA rating, but that's typically reserved for, you would say, the very large countries. I think right now it's only the U.S. economy. I don't want to misstate it, but I think the U.S. economy definitely has a AAA rating. And one of the things that Moody's takes into real consideration is what's going on in the economy in terms of both public sector and private sector, the resilience of the economy to absorb and rebound from various shocks, whether those are natural hazard shocks or economic shocks. So obviously the very large industrialized economies that are well diversified would have more ability to do so. But in terms of the Cayman Islands and the discussion that we were able to have with the Moody's team, and by the way, this is an annual discussion that happens with the Moody's rating agency, we are in a very enviable situation with the Cayman Islands. We've had stable economic growth. Our economy is, while it is based primarily in financial and professional services and tourism services, year after year, we have remained very stable. We have very low unemployment numbers. Currently, our growth in tourism has been phenomenal. Financial services, despite all of the changes that are happening internationally, our financial services continues to grow and expand. Our generally, our GDP is growing across the Cayman Islands. We're seeing higher income growth in virtually all employment sectors. Income within those employment sectors, no matter what industry you're employed in, we've seen income stability or income growth, which are all factors and things that play into consideration. Now, I don't have the specifics in relation to Bermuda.
Okay, for Bermuda, the Moody's credit Standard & Poor's gave them an A+. Moody's gave them an A2, and Fitch was NA. They didn't rate them. Yeah. They didn't rate them at all.
Yeah. I think the important thing there too, if you look at Moody's rating of an A2, That's 2 notches below where we are
yes.
in Cayman, and that's pretty significant. Any sort of movement one way or another in a rating by Moody's or any of the rating agencies, OC, is very significant. So the fact that they have, because I think previously, I think you mentioned it earlier, they were in AA2, and so they have moved down 3 notches. Yes. In recent years.
Okay, I know the FS is going to respond to something as well, but I have one more WhatsApp here. It says, heard Minister, with all efforts made to help Caymanians, but if we have, that should read, heard Minister talk about all the efforts made to help Caymanians, but if we have to continue competing with wages paid to permit holders in the construction industry, the amount applying for government aid will just continue to get higher in years to come. Low wages means less saved in working years, also fees, also less pensions when retired. We need a minimum wage by category. I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, the overall thesis is making a case for a minimum wage by category.
And some may argue instead of a minimum wage, a living wage.
Yeah. And those are discussions that need probably to be taken and for us to look at in moving forward. Just remember that we only just got to the point where we introduced a minimum wage 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I think at some point these are discussions that we need to have and see what changes need to be made with regard to that.
Okay.
But I mean that's for a different forum and discussion.
Okay. Yes,
thank you. Mr. Connor, I just wanted to address, because I know time is just upon us now, soon be 10 a.m. I just wanted to address one of your earlier points that you were making about there is a great temptation for governments to spend a lot when the economy is doing well, etc. And I just wanted to address that from a sort of a technical point of view. I do that by saying that the framework for fiscal responsibility, which we heard about earlier, the FFR, as it's commonly called, it was signed with the FCO back in November 2011. A year later, in November 2012, it actually became a part of the public management and finance law, and it still is a part of the law. So it's not a separate standalone document. It's now a legal requirement for the government to comply with. And there are certain principles, and I'll just mention the main ones quickly. There are certain principles within the public management and finance law coming from the FFR which should prevent the possibility that you were speaking about of governments going overboard and being reckless and so forth. First, one of the key requirements is that the government has to produce an annual surplus. So it cannot incur expenditures to the extent where those expenditures exceed the government's revenues. That's an illegal position, and government has to have a surplus every year. Another very important requirement is that the debt servicing costs, not only of the government but of the entire public sector, has to, and that means the interest payments on government's borrowings, the interest payments on the Turtle Farm borrowings when they were in existence, the interest payments on Cayman Airways borrowings, plus the principal repayments on all of those debts in the course of a year cannot exceed 10% of the government's revenue. So, in other words, there's a built-in limitation as to how much government can borrow. So you can't go out and do something silly. So they are within the PMFL these requirements that the government has to comply with. There's also a requirement that the government has to have a minimum of 90 days of operating expenditure coverage every single day of the year. And so we spoke about $2 million per day early on. So that 90 days expenditure, operating expenditure coverage translates into the government must maintain a minimum of approximately $180 million in cash every single day of the year. So there are certain features within the FFR, within the public management and finance law that would caused the government not to be able to do anything that was untoward and irresponsible. And the last point I would make is that there's also a requirement for the government's net assets. Its assets less its liabilities must also be positive. That's another requirement of the law. So those inbuilt, I think, features
controls
would help frustrate the possibility that you spoke of.
Thank you very much, FS. I think that clearly explains that. Minister, you have the last word.
Well, I just take his statement with regard to some of the requirements of the FFR, particularly with regard to surpluses. The government, certainly this one that I'm a part of and the previous one, I mean, we always said we just didn't want a surplus. We wanted a substantial surplus. Because you recognize with some of the numbers that you're dealing with, it's quite easy to fall afoul. So we sort of just set an arbitrary limit that, whatever budgets we take, we want to show of around 50 million at least in a budgetary surplus. Mm-hmm. That gives you a bit of a cushion there to respond in the event that there are any shocks that might appear that would put your ability to generate a surplus in jeopardy.
Okay.
So, you want me, if I could, then just
Sure,
conclude?
Minister, yes.
So we're near to the end of it. I just want to thank you for hosting us this morning, and thankful too for the questions and the callers that we have had. To me, this always makes for interesting discussion. I want to thank too my colleagues here in the ministry who are extremely dedicated and responsible people leading that ministry, and thank them for their input and assistance this morning as well, and thank you and to the wider listening public.
And Minister, I want to thank you for being so forthright, and your team for such clarity that they brought to the conversation, and I know that our listening and viewing audience were able to follow and to understand everything that you explained to them this morning as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling, Dwayne Ebanks at 12:15 for Talk Today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the